Hey students, here's a quick and mathy guide to doing this process called completing the square. This is a really important part of this cycle and the first of two sets of skills that we need here. So first off, we need to understand what a perfect square is. We've been using these for a while and solving problems like x squared equals 9. We know we can do the square root of both sides to get x is equal to plus or minus 3. Same is true if I've got x plus 4 all squared is equal to 25. Once I have that squared thing, I can take the square root. I get x plus 4 is equal to plus or minus 5. To finish this up, I'm going to move the 4 to the other side to get x equals negative 4 plus or minus 5, which is the same thing as saying x is equal to negative 4 plus 5, or positive 1, and negative 4 minus 5, or negative 9. So if we know that something is a perfect square, we can take the square root and we can solve the problem that way. So why do we need some new method? We've done square root stuff, we've done factoring stuff, and I'm going to give you an example of a problem. This is x squared plus 12x plus 10 that we need this for. And we need this for because if I do a times c is equal to 10, b is equal to 12, well, I'd like 1 and 10, 2 and 5, and those are the only things that multiply to 10, or at least positive things that multiply to 10. Neither of those add up to 12, so we have something that's unfactorable. For unfactorable problems, we're going to use completing the square to solve them. So let's take a look at this process. I'm going to use that same example I just did, and we're going to complete this process through a number of steps. The first step is going to be to clean our problem up. When I say clean up, what I mean is I'm going to make my problem look like x squared plus something x, I'm just going to call that b, is equal to some number on this side. So based on my problem here, I'm trying to get this part to be on its own, and I'm going to minus 10 from both sides to make that happen. That gets us x squared plus 12x is equal to negative 10. That's my first step in completing the square. After that, we are going to then do this completing the square process. And this is based on knowing a couple things. The first is that if I want this to be a perfect square, I need both parentheses to be exactly the same. And for those to be exactly the same, I've got to split my middle term up into the exact same thing in both pieces. To get 12x into two even pieces, I'm going to write that as a 6x and another 6x. I'm going to leave some space here before I put the equals and then put my minus 10 afterwards. Okay, so I'm going to start factoring this to see kind of what's going on here. I've got x and 6x, or x squared and 6x. I can take an x out front, and it's going to leave me an x plus 6. I know I want the other parentheses to be an x plus 6 as well. And I know that if I have a 6 attached to this, that I've got to bring that out in front to make that happen. One thing that you might notice is that for this to happen, I need another number here. And the number that I need there is going to be 6 times 6, which is 36. A shortcut to get that is to this number that we split into two equal pieces. If I multiply those together, 6 times 6, I get 36. And one last piece of this, if I add 36 to the left side, I have to add 36 to the right side as well. So on the right side, that would give us negative 10 plus 36 is going to be 26. Okay, let's finish our factoring. We've got an x plus 6 coming out front, and then my leftovers are going to be another x plus 6. So that's going to be the same as saying x plus 6 squared, because those are the same exact thing. That's why this works. And then on the other side, we still have that 26. Okay, to finish this up, we're going to take the square root of both sides. We get x plus 6 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 26. That gets me x is equal, I'm going to minus 6 to the other side. Minus 6 plus or minus the square root of 26. because 26 does not simplify as a square root, we can leave that alone and just leave the answer like that, which is kind of a nice change. We don't have to go further than that. Let's look at another example. So the next example we're going to look at, we're going to start by cleaning up. And again, I want this to look like x squared plus bx is equal to something. This time I notice I've got a 2 in front and I've got a minus 8 there. Let's deal with that 2 first. And to deal with 2x squared, I'm going to divide everything by 2. So that's going to give us x squared plus 10x minus 4 is equal to 0. Okay, at this point, we've almost cleaned up. We still need to get this part by itself. I'm going to add 4 to the other side to get x squared plus 10x is equal to 4. Now let's move on to my completing the square thing. We're going to break up our middle term. So it's x squared plus 5x plus 5x. I'm going to leave some space, and that's equal to 4. I'm going to multiply those two 5s together to get plus 25, and I need to make sure I add that to the other side as well. That's going to give me 29 on the right side, and then I can factor this. That's going to be x times x plus 5 plus 5 times x plus 5. And then finally, that's going to give me x plus 5 times x plus 5, which we can rewrite as x plus 5 squared is equal to 29. We take the square root of both sides. We get x plus 5 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 29. And that gives us x is equal to negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 29. Once again, we can't simplify that, so that's as far as we need to go. One more example. This one is another a term that's not 1, so we've got to start by dividing everything by negative 3. This is my cleanup step. So negative 3 for all 3 pieces. That's going to give me x squared plus 8x, and that's equal to 3. All right, then we got to go into our completing the square step. We got to break that middle term up into 2 equal pieces, so 4x and 4x. I'm going to leave some space there, and it's going to be equal to 3. All right, let's multiply those together. That gives me plus 16. And now I'm going to start factoring. X times x plus 4 plus 4 times x plus 4 is equal to 3 plus 16 is 19. X plus 4, and then my leftovers are also x plus 4. That's going to give me x plus 4 as a quantity squared is equal to 19. I'm going to square root both sides to give me x plus 4 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 19. Finally, I'm going to get x by itself, minusing 4 from both sides, so I get minus 4 plus or minus the square root of 19 is my final answer. Okay, we went through why we need to be able to complete the square. We did a few examples, and hopefully that will help you understand this process.